Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Good morning, my gorgeous friends. How are you all today? I have a special treat for you today, and Dr. Mary's not with me, but instead I have a gorgeous woman, Amanda Moore, who has recently done our 12-week Mind Body Rebalance, but I wanted to get her on the podcast because she has a remarkable journey and a transformation in her health. So I thought it would be awesome if she was able to share that with you. So good morning, Amanda, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Dr. Lucy. It's great to be here and a little bit fun and surreal to be actually part of the podcast rather than listening to it.
I know. Well, I did hear you just saying that you've been binging it, and it often feels like that. I remember when I first I used to listen to this podcast called The Two Keto Dudes, and I was listening to it one day on the way to the airport when I was going to a low carb conference. And listening. It was again, right, maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I was fairly new to this whole hoo-ha. And then I went and met the keto dude. He just happened to be at the conference. I'm going, oh my God. So I was a tiny bit kind of, fangirling. So yeah, I do get it. So gorgeous one, tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us what was happening for you.
Well, like so many other people, I've had the old battle of the bulge over the years and done a lot of diets. But then in the middle of 2021, I had sudden onset of rheumatoid arthritis. And it wasn't just a sore finger or a sore toe. I was completely incapacitated. Both legs were affected, couldn't walk, couldn't do most things. Lost all use and function of my right hand. So I was a one-limbed person for quite some time. So life had got a little bit miserable and I put a lot of weight on during the course of that ill health and the medications. So I was looking for something to try and help my health, help get rid of some of that weight loss.
So I'm imagining that some of those medications would have included prednisolone. Would that be right?
Yes, so I started on quite a high dose of prednisolone and methotrexate because my body wasn't responding at the time, so they actually had to up my dosages. And I would have been on the prednisolone solidly for 7 or 8 months before my body started to actually respond.
Gosh, and how did that prednisolone affect you? Like, what did it do for you? Like, how did it make you feel?
Well, it was miserable. I was physically tired. I was incapable of really doing anything for myself. Brain fog. Like I lost a lot of mental capacity during that time.
Yep.
And generally felt mentally and physically unwell to a point that I've never known in my life. It was really quite grim because we have our own business, so it wasn't just that my husband was picking up the load at home, but it was also happening at our business. So it was grim.
Yeah, grim. Gosh, that's a very powerful word. And I think, what you've just described there is what happens to us when our health, which most of us take for granted, is suddenly taken away from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens so quickly too. And you sort of bumble along in life and think, oh, well, I can work on the weight loss or I can work on my mental health later. But then sometimes, bang, it happens overnight and you don't have a choice to deal with it.
No. And look, autoimmune conditions, are ever increasing. I remember seeing lots of people in my practice with various autoimmune conditions, of which rheumatoid arthritis is one of them. And the treatments are, reasonably brutal.
Yeah, and there's really nothing for it. You sort of, you go to the specialists and it's like, well, these are our tools.
Yeah.
And at that point, you have no idea what's going on. So it's, yes, just give me anything and everything to help this, autoimmune condition resolve itself, or at least get to a point where the inflammation's under control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the trick, isn't it? I mean, autoimmune, it means our immune system is dysregulated for some reason. It's actually overworking and creating things that the immune system is designed to protect the body, but when it's overactive, it does the opposite. Instead of protecting the body, it attacks the body.
Yeah, and I think that's the wake-up call, is that all of a sudden the body's not happy. So is it the food? Is it your own little cells? My family referred to the little trucks going around in your body, what's fighting with whom and where, and, just got to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you're in a pretty bad way then with, developing rheumatoid arthritis, and then the medications that we use to try and dampen down the immune system, in particular prednisolone, which is used for lots of conditions. And look, like we always say, medications, it's not that we believe that medications are terrible. In fact, for a lot of people, they're life-saving, but they do come with a raft of side effects.
Yeah, and I mean, the choice between losing lots of hair, which is what I did, and, some of the weight issues that came with it were far less important at the time than dealing with the situation that was at hand. But then when you get over that, you're like, well, I need these medications to manage the situation, but then, what do I do now to turn it around?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine, I mean, you're right. You lost function. You weren't able to function. You weren't able to live your life, and the medications helped you regain that. But then, one of our favorite sayings is always, we want people to be able to get to the point where they're using the lowest effective dose of any medication.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, once I'd got over the worst of it, I was still dabbling in the prednisolone. I'd still have the occasional, issue with a wrist or an ankle or the knees. And so the prednisolone was always there in the background, needing to be tapped into.
Yeah, absolutely. So what then moved you to the point where you go, all right, so I've got over, the worst of the rheumatoid arthritis, like the big storm has passed, and now I'm bumbling along and, not feeling great. What tipped you over? What tipped you into doing something?
I think I'd had such a wake-up call about my health that it was more than just losing the weight to help my joints. It was about getting myself well, because obviously I wasn't well, otherwise I wouldn't be in that situation.
Yep.
And, like you, I'd done the Weight Watchers millions of times. I'd done all sorts of other diets, and, the weight had come off, but it never stayed off, and it never made me well. So I was just a bit lost. I was, in the forest and not knowing which way to go, and I needed something to turn my health around. And for whatever reason, there's your smiling face and Dr. Mary's face popped up on Facebook or Instagram. I thought, I could look at this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, you've heard me talk, the whole dieting history, the queen, and, I was a queen, as lots of us, we're all the queens of dieting. We're pretty good at it. We can lose weight by dieting. I don't think anyone would dispute that, but the method in which we do it is so harmful to our metabolism, to our metabolic rate, and to the way we live, that the only tools we're given are, willpower, or to what I like to call kind of abdicate your responsibility, abdicate your decision making to a meal plan or a points calculator.
Yeah. I mean, food really becomes your jailer. You're either so heavily in a restricted plan of what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat, or on the other side, you're like, oh, better be good. No, I better not have that. Oh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And in fact, what you've just sort of reminded me then of this idea that for lots of us, we, careering down the road of life, you're either on one side being perfect, strict, restrictive, hungry, but, all in the quest of losing weight, or you're on the other side, which is just kind of scoffing everything in sight, because the next step is to go back to that restriction. And so you've got this, this just exhausting cycle. And yet when you learn the skills and have the confidence to do that middle of the road and then have a lane assist just keeping you in the middle, it's freeing.
Yeah, not having fatigue and exhaustion. You just, I thought that was a normal part of life. I mean, I was joking with Nikki yesterday that I'd have 8-10 coffees a day in the office.
Yeah. To just power through your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at the time you were obviously feeling, apart from, feeling overweight and blah, you were tired, fatigued.
Yes.
Any other symptoms?
Still brain fog. Lethargy, I think, most of the time.
Yeah.
And then I think more so it's that feeling of being lost.
And what about menopause? Where are you in your menopause life?
Oh, joyful. I woke up 4 times last night with the old torrential sweat coming off of me. So I think I'm perimenopausal. I had a hysterectomy in my early 40s. So, for me, it's a bit of a guessing game. But, I've got the old hot flushes and the sweat going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess then if you're thinking, you want to change your life, you want to do something, what goals were you wanting to achieve?
I think a big one was finding something sustainable, finding something that would nourish me and keep me going to address that sort of fatigue and exhaustion. And really anything that could help my system beat the inflammation. And, I didn't have a great gut. All of these little things come together and you just think, well, the whole system needs a reboot and a refresh, and I need something that's sustainable and, that I can do forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without pilling some, pills and potions that you see on the internet.
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting. I mean, there are some, Hippocrates famously said, all disease begins in the gut. And there are plenty of theories that are looking to see that autoimmune conditions, there may be some gut involvement. It's interesting then that you mentioned that your gut was a bit unhappy as well.
Yeah.
I know for many people, they get worried when they're, thinking of changing their lifestyle, like there's things that they think they might not be able to do. Was there anything like that for you? Did you have any worries or concerns?
I think probably that I'd done so many diets before that it wouldn't work. And I went initially in with the view that it was a diet. But then I had a little episode in the August before the 12-week rebalance started, and I thought, oh, sugar, okay, I'm just going to join because I can't face another 6 months of terror.
Right. Okay. Interesting. What was the little episode?
So I had terrible pains in my stomach. It was like almost like someone was stabbing me, and that would be from a certain movement or having a sip of tea. And my inflammatory markers did a bit of a spike. So I have monthly blood work, and my rheumatologist was on the phone and, you all right? And I'm like, oh, well, actually.
Another little, it's interesting, isn't it? We often talk about this concept that people will change when the pain of staying where they are becomes greater than the pain of moving away from that. So for a lot of us, we will tolerate things, we'll tolerate our dodgy guts, we'll tolerate some joint pain, we'll tolerate, not being able to put our shoes on or something like that, until there gets a certain point where you suddenly go, actually, I can't tolerate this anymore. I need to do something.
Yeah. And it really was for me, the mind went, okay, you've been tossing this idea up for a couple of months, because I first saw you in the May one, May 12 weeks was coming out. I thought, oh, not sure, and then as soon as my mind goes, yep, I need to do something, that was it. There was no stopping. Just, enroll and do it.
Excellent. And so what's happened to you since?
Well, it's been quite amazing, I think. The freedom, like all of a sudden you're having to use your brain and make your own decisions around food.
Yeah.
And I've no longer sort of grazing looking for food, don't have the afternoon sort of fatigue. I'm finding that I've got so much more energy. I haven't had any issues with my joints at all during this period. And it's that, I think, the overriding sense of freedom and having energy now that has just made the world of difference.
Amazing. So when you say you haven't had any issues with your joints in this period, how long are we talking?
Well, I'm really looking at sort of that September 2023 to now January 24.
Yeah.
And I would almost always have a niggle of some sort of varying degrees. So for me, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So 4 months, no need for prednisolone. Is that what you're saying?
Not at all.
Which, I mean, that in itself is phenomenal because, again, as you know, we love to say to people it's the lowest effective dose, and particularly for things like prednisolone, if that can be 0, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
But I think, that when I was first diagnosed, I said, fatigue and lethargy are just going to be part and parcel of it. Well, I've lost so much of that now. I've got so much more energy. I mean, I'm not where I was when I was 25, but most of us aren't. But it's really made a big difference to how I'm feeling physically, for energy, and even, the clarity of mind it has its moments because of menopause, but that feels better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we talk quite a bit about menopause, and for lots of people, they will potentially need some hormone replacement, or now as it's called, menopause replacement, menopausal hormonal treatment. But a lot of women, once they just change their food, manage their mind, address their stress, find that actually their symptoms are so much improved they don't need it.
Yeah, and you start eating so much less. I know when we first started the 12 weeks, a lot of people going, oh, it's going to cost so much more money. You've got to buy, meat, and, got to change all of this. And my husband actually commented before Christmas, we're actually eating less.
Yeah.
And you're eating, you might be eating 2 meals and you're not actually noticing that you're missing out on something, and you're not snacking. So all those little extraneous things that go on the shopping list or out at the cafe when you're out during the day, they're gone. So it's actually quite a good economics in it as well.
I love that. And in fact, I think you're right. Like, it took me a little while to adjust my shopping list, which used to be sort of massive. And I'd buy all this food, and then I'd find I actually don't have the time or the appetite to eat it. Like, I have the time, but I'm not hungry enough to eat it. So it just sort of sat there for a while until I kind of had to do a little adjustment.
Yeah, completely. And that's, for someone who's always been hungry to suddenly go, oh, actually, 2 meals is plenty. And then when you finish, it's like, I'm not looking for dessert or late night snacks, It's really amazing. I mean, it did, it probably took me sort of week 8 to week 10 before my brain and body got into gear. But then it was just like, wow, don't need to be eating all the time.
No, it's amazing, isn't it? And I think, it's like we just said, sometimes it takes a while for your brain to catch up with what's going on because, as you'll know, we always say our brain is a pattern machine. It likes to do what it's always done. It relies on past experiences to predict the future. And when it's suddenly going, oh, I don't need to buy this much food. I don't need to eat this often. It can take a little adjusting.
Yeah. And I think, even people with gut issues, the change of eating, like just for me personally, I've noticed that, the whole sort of gut and processes are so much better as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you just got to give it a go and give it time, because most of us have taken 15, 20, 30 years to get where we're at.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think part of it is, we teach people a way to eat that reduces their processed food. And like, I look at the processed food I used to consume. I didn't even consider it processed food. I didn't consider bread to be processed food. I thought bread was healthy. And I certainly didn't consider things like, muesli bars to be processed food, particularly if they were diet muesli bars, like they were good for you, I thought.
That was a really good snack.
Yeah, or a diet yogurt with some hideous goop in it. So, again, I think it's really important for people to realise that what we did that actually wasn't helpful isn't our fault. Like, we were taught that.
Yeah. I don't know what made me think of it, but I've suddenly got ankles again.
Oh, amazing. I know. And I love that. So there's all these funny, and, we call them the non-scale victories because, again, yes, there's some weight loss involved, but if that is your sole focus, then you're missing the point. And so we always look at, right, well, what other things have improved? And so, from you, you've got ankles and you've reduced medication, like toxic medications.
Yeah. And it's, reducing that medication load on the system. It's not just how you feel physically, but also mentally. You don't have this worry about, this medication that you'll have to take for the rest of your life. But what is it doing to you? And like in the case of rheumatoid arthritis, there's issues potentially with, your heart disease and all sorts of awful other illnesses out there. And, you just have to do something to help your body mitigate those potential risks. And if eating real food, like as you say, around the outside aisles of the supermarket, it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Easy thing to do.
It is. Once you've got the easy strategies, once it becomes second nature, it's just then easy peasy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess one of the other things that can be really important, and you alluded to this right at the very start, is looking at things like stress and the effects of that stress plays on your body and on diseases. How are you going with managing that these days?
Oh, stress is still my kryptonite. I work full time and I have a fairly intense job. And so for me, stress is there all the time. And it's the thing that will wake me up at night. So I'm really needing to work on the hypnosis and just trying different things to mitigate that. But I think for me, that's probably the more difficult one than the food.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting. And I think, you just described it beautifully. Like, there's things that, and we call them external stressors. So that's busy work or demanding jobs, or, for some people it's little kids waking up. Like, there's things that you can't change. But what we can do is change the way we react to them and the way in which our brain and body is affected by them.
Yeah.
And so, coming up with various skills for that. And I think maybe some people forget it is a skill to learn how to, meditate, or how to listen to hypnosis, or how to do tapping, which is one of our other things we teach people, or how to just, in fact, as busy, high-achieving women, how to learn to just stop.
Yeah, and it's that thing, I think so many women, whether you're working or whether you've got a family, it's so many other people come first, and that's where our physical diet and our mental health, they sort of take second seat to everything else. And one thing that I've been learning through some of the hypnosis and the 12-week program is to go, well, hang on a minute, you're not much use to anyone if you're not around. You got to start looking after yourself.
Absolutely. Maybe we should call it the 12-week Put Yourself First program. Gorgeous one. So how are you feeling now? How do you feel these days?
Actually, really good. I feel physically, I feel I have more energy. I don't feel sluggish at all. I feel empowered to actually make decisions when I'm out at a restaurant or at a family gathering. Whereas before there was either no thought or you better not do that.
Yeah.
So, more control, more energy, generally just feeling so much better. Like I can do things that before I'd be like, oh, yeah, no, I'll just sit around and have a bit of a lie here and watch the TV or something.
Yeah. I love that because what you're saying, and this is really one of our aims is for people to feel better, have more energy, have increased vitality so that they're not living their life on the sidelines.
Yeah, completely. And, when you've had the energy removed from you and all of a sudden you find it and it's just like, oh, wow, I can actually go and do all those extra things that I didn't think I could do.
Amazing. I love that. So lovely. If you had a top tip for somebody who's new, who's thinking, I need to do something. I've got brain fog. I've got no energy. My joints are sore. What would be your top tip for them?
Oh gosh, well, don't hesitate in doing the program as I did, first of all, and just go into it with faith and know that it'll take some time for you to get your head around how it will work, because it does work, and it feels to me now that it's something that I can do long term. It's not restrictive. And, that to me is worth so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the fact that you, as you said, you recognize that it is, it's like changing operating systems. We have been programmed to look at health, look at weight loss, look at behavior change in a certain way. And what I think Dr. Mary and I try and offer is a different way. It's a different way to look at things.
Yeah.
And
completely.
That can feel a little tricky at first. But, as they say, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Yes. And I can say no diet that I've been on before has made me feel energetic.
Great. I love that. Well, gorgeous one, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you've got your health back, that you've got your movement back, that you've got your energy back, because the world needs you. You've got a lot to offer. You've got an important job, and we want you around for a long time.
Oh, thank you. That's so lovely. But, it's a really big thank you to you and Dr. Mary and the rest of the team, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys.
Oh, well, I think a joint effort, definitely a joint effort. Gorgeous one, take very good care. Lovely listeners, that's it for me this week, and I will catch you next week. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.